Again, it's based on broadly male philosophy that argues that the authenticity of being a human being is to have complete freedom of choice. That's self-assertion, ambition, power, and self-fulfillment, just of me, myself, and I, and I'm exaggerating it a little bit, is the model of fulfillment and authenticity. So liberal feminism, you'll hear every day, I am going to be who I need to be by exerting my will, by exerting my choices. So freedom of choice means my ability to make a decision about anything that I wish to make a decision about, as long as it doesn't hurt anybody else. The next form of feminism is the one we live with a bit more today, which we might call postmodern feminism, which, like postmodernism in general, deconstructs all the old certainties about what's right or wrong, deconstructs the body, deconstructs my identity, deconstructs my history, and urges us to remake ourselves in as playful and as desirable a way that we can. I sometimes call it the kind of Madonna model of feminism. Madonna, you know how many bits and pieces she's changed about herself. You just re-emerge as a new person. Now, the funniest thing about all these forms of feminism, apart from one, is that all of them have been bought by globalisation and by consumerism. All of them. The only exception I would make is a small and brave, and I think rather admirable group of feminists known as the radical separatist feminists, who are a splinter group now in feminism. And they often have a belief that the environment we live in, especially the natural environment, is a gift, that being made a woman is a very special thing, that women by and large are different to men, and in some degrees, most of them would say, in fact, never consort with the enemy. Unfortunately, the enemy is men. So quite a lot of them take the option of living in a kind of lesbian community. However, the interesting thing is that this group of feminists haven't been bought by the consumerist globalised culture. They actually still critique what they see as the exploitation of the medical industry. They still critique the depiction of women on billboards. They still critique the exploitation of young children. And so often you'll find that the many things that Pope John Paul II will say about women, the lesbian separatist feminists are also saying. And strangely enough, a couple of them have actually said to me that they thought that some of the comments made by the church have actually been very affirming of them as women in terms of the idea of equal rights and the respect for women's bodies and so on. So that's an interesting and a surprising thing. But by and large, most young women don't subscribe to any particular form of feminism. And in fact, I suppose if I asked you young women what you thought of feminism, you probably all have a slightly different impression of what it meant. Maybe I'll do that, just as a straw vote. What's feminism? Especially the girls, but maybe the boys and young men have got ideas as well. What's feminism?
Thanks for the talk.
What's feminism? I mean, I think that's the trouble, isn't it? We don't really know what it means.
To me, it means being able to have my opinion and to also acknowledge that other people have a different opinion to me, but take that on. To give the equal opportunity as everyone else, to be able to improve myself and opportunities. I think that's just it. Being able to have the choices that everyone else has the choices and the rights to.
Good. That's pretty much a good depiction, yeah?
I agree with my opinion.
Yeah.
Also, I think it's been part of respect, equal respect.
Yes, good.
Both sexes.
Yeah. Good. Well, that's something that I think a lot of young people are starting to say too, that this is not warfare against men. This is maybe critiquing some of the things that men do, you know, being a little bit realistic, but not necessarily setting up battle lines between the two sexes.
It also means you've got to have an understanding of yourself, and you've got to have a large respect for yourself before you can do anything else. If you don't have that respect and confidence for yourself, then believing in anything else just won't really work.
That's very good. In fact, interestingly enough, those things that you're saying are really what the new feminism is about, which is about fostering opportunities for women that encourage them to be strong, encourage them to be courageous, virtuous, adventurous, well-educated as they need to be, exploring their dreams, and being able to find love and respect and dignity.
For me also, it's also respecting the woman and the body and that role, like it's motherhood, but though they are to man, there are a man in a body, a man in a role. So,
That's very interesting, because each of these are things that, in fact, the new feminism stand for. But just to give you an idea as to what it might be that John Paul II was envisaging when he said there needs to be a new feminism, let me tell you where the feminist revolution targeted itself, and to see a little bit of where the new feminism might also respond to these challenges. There are several areas that were really big in many of the feminist critiques of the society that women came into. The first and most obvious one was the place of social and institutional power. Many women saw that they had no opportunity for leadership or recognition, or, and this is more important, especially for the new feminism, authority. Authority is a very different idea than power. And that's something I'd like you to think about. Authority, especially if we read it through the gospel eyes, comes from who you are, your authenticity, your virtue, and ultimately about your relationship with God. Because remember what the Jewish people said, the Jewish friends of Jesus said when he taught in the temple. They said, "Who is this man? He teaches with authority, he teaches with truth, he's credible, he's convincing." So part of what the new feminism tries to do is say, how can we give genuine authority, the true authority that goes with being a woman, back to women? I think many women today might have power, but they actually don't feel they have any authority. Very many of them are in the workforce, beating themselves up, do the work-life balance thing, trying to keep themselves on the tree and trying to also keep themselves integrated. And it's very, very difficult, as it is for men. The second thing that I think women of both types, all kinds of feminism wanted, was recognition and opportunity. Now, clearly, in the more recent European history, women sometimes didn't have the opportunity, surprisingly, that Christian women in the medieval ages did have. And it's interesting that when you look at the list, especially today is the feast of Margaret of Scotland. Now, admittedly, she was a queen, so she had some power and authority. But she is a not untypical case of a woman in a medieval culture. She was not at the bottom of the tree. She was recognised. She had authority. She, in fact, changed the whole quality of her husband's court because she thought it was too brutalised. She started a charity from her court. She was able to live a fully Christian life as a woman, as were many, many other figures from that period of early history. Juliana of Norwich, Catherine of Siena, Catherine of Genoa, Bridget of Sweden. Think about it. Many of the women who were in the church in that time found that not only could they be educated, especially if they were involved in particular kinds of religious life, some of them were not educated unfairly. Catherine of Siena somehow streamed her intelligence through her mystical experiences, but they were able to have true authority and influence, more so than many women following the Reformation, following the Enlightenment. And that's something that new historians of the new feminist kind are discovering. There's a very interesting woman called Hannah Girl Falkovich, and she has done a huge history of the recognition that women had from 1000 to about 1400 in Christian society. And she says, let's not forget those women were actually leaders in their own time. And I think it's important for us to remember that too, and to see inspiration in their lives. Because I think not only do they have authority, they have one more quality which the new feminism aspires to, and that is holiness.